So it's been a bit since I sat down and did a Dororo episode review. I missed last week's, and I'm finally here for this week to do a review. And like I said in my episode reviews for last week, like for a different series, I talked about how because I was so far behind, I decided just to stick to the series that was coming out throughout the day, and then I'll use that to catch up. So I decided against just uploading last week's episode review, because the time I would have finally gotten it uploaded, this would have came out, so that was the entire point. So anyways, I'm here, and I do want to talk about last week's episode a little bit, because it's very important for the mindset that Haya is in throughout this episode. And so to briefly get into the main important part, is that Haya has fallen. He has realized what he lacks. And yes, it's been very apparent for a while. He knows he's missing his body, but I think last week's episode really showed what he truly was missing, and he truly felt despair. It was probably the first time in his entire life he felt like he was weak, he felt like he was missing something, and that he felt like he couldn't do something. And it was a really important moment for his character. And like, the scene I'm talking about is when Dororo, she's stuck, and she can't get her arm out of this wall. And then you have this natural spring coming up from under the ground, slowly filling up this little section that is going to drown her. And obviously, we know for a fact that Haya would try to save her. And he does everything he can within his power to try to save her. Like, he tries to, dig it out, tries to push it. He does anything he potentially could. But he realizes very quickly, because of him not having real arms, he's not able to get Dororo out with ease. Not at all, actually. If it wasn't for the traveling monk coming up out of nowhere, Dororo would have died. And the scream of Haya was enough to really just show why he acts like he does right now. Is because, once again, after everything, after his entire journey since the beginning, he has been gaining back his body. He also gained Dororo as a companion, as a family member, so to say. And in that moment of desperation where he couldn't even save her, he didn't want to lose her. He did not want to lose her, and he started to blame himself, his weakness. And in that moment, he realized, because of what was taken from him, she could have easily have died, and he would not have been able to do anything at all. And that is why he was driven so much by anger after that, why he had so much fury, is because he realized now what it meant to have something, and he knew now what it meant to have it taken away. And he did not want Dororo just taken away from him. So that is why he was in the mindset throughout this episode as well. Why he was so cold and willing to attack his own family and just attack humans left and right and not really care. It really said a lot when the beginning of this episode starts off, and they're going into Daigo's land, and you see this dude trying to give honest advice to Dororo and Haya about what's going on in Daigo's land. Like, hey, don't go in there. You have this other, group going in, trying to invade this land. It's not safe. If you don't live here, I don't recommend you going in. And the man did try to look out for him in his own way. He was trying to be compassionate / kind. And he grabbed Haya's arm, obviously because Haya doesn't have a real arm. His overall sheath just fell off. His sword blade came out, and then he pointed the sword at the dude. And in that moment, when Haya looks at the dude, stay out of my way, it says a lot about him. It basically stated that Haya is at the point now to where nobody can stop him. Nobody. Even Dororo, I believe, probably cannot stop him at all at this point, because he now knows what it feels like to be helpless, to know what it feels like not to have something, because at the beginning of the story, he didn't know what he lost. That's what I kind of talked about. I talked about the tragedy that was Haya as an individual, is that he didn't really know what he had. Lack of eyes, lack of hearing, lack of speaking, lack of feel. He didn't know. But now that he does, it's a lot worse. His emotions are just going to get more and more fierce and direct as time goes on. And so in that moment when he looks at the dude like, stay out of my way, he's like, I will kill anyone that gets in my way for what I want. I don't care if you're human or not. That's pretty much what he said in that one little moment. And the thing is that Haya doesn't realize is because of his path, what he's wanting to do, he's at risk of losing something. He's at risk of losing Dororo. And I think that's something that he is not truly aware of. Like, he's aware that, Dororo is in danger, but I don't think he's truly come to terms with how Dororo can just get up and leave him because of his decision, of how he's losing himself. And I think that is something he's definitely going to have to face before everything is said and done. Will he lose Dororo to obtain his body? That's the question. But getting back into the other major parts of the latest episode, we have it to where Haya comes face to face once again with Tammaro. He faces his brother, his kin, and it's once again a beautiful, beautiful scene for the show. In terms of art and animation, it was an amazing moment of the episode, and I gotta say, 2 for 2. Like, in terms of these fights that Tammaro and, Haya had, it's been great. Non-stop greatness, and I'm just glad to see that, because if there's one thing that I just did not expect is the true beauty of these fights that was showcased in recent episodes, and I'm looking forward to the finale of the show when, there probably is the final standoff with Haya and Tammaro. But the fight happens, and we know for a fact, because of the way this episode was and how we know this isn't the finale, there was no way that Haya was going to go down, and I truly doubted that Tammaro was going to go down as well. And I felt like this episode was more for fuel to redirect his anger and what, he could potentially lose as well. And that's kind of what this episode was about. Basically, Tammaro, we know that he has 2 people behind him, 2 bodyguards, that he has had since he was a child, and we get to see their backstory within this episode. They were the individuals that ended up being slaves, locked away, prisoners of war, and they had a really rough life. They did not get to eat, they were starving, and they dealt with a lot of harsh times that nobody their age should. Obviously, thanks to Daigo, they were found, and he took pity on them, and had them raised, and to protect Tammaro. And we know the rest to this very day. And seeing how they were injured within this episode, not even talking about one of them contacting, or, the plague, getting the plague, with their arms now being severed and cut off, it's kind of like, they can't really do their job anymore. They cannot actually save or protect Tammaro or Daigo's land. And I feel like they are going to die. Those 2 individuals will die, which will be fuel for Tammaro to take from Haya. And what I'm trying to say is that I feel like one of the things that Tammaro is going to be faced with is to take Dororo's life. And why I say that is because after he loses people that he thinks of as like a brother and sister, if he loses that, he will direct his anger somewhere, his sadness. And obviously, he'll do anything in his power to probably hurt Haya. So he would focus on Dororo, potentially killing her to get back at Haya, take away what he loves. And I could definitely see something like that happening, just to show the extent of how far gone Tammaro is as well. But it doesn't just stop there. It's also the fact that it's ironic, really, that the more and more fights that Daigo's people gets in, like, fights with Haya, they lose something. Like Tammaro and his bodyguards. Tammaro, as we know, he lost his eye. And the 2 individuals that, bodyguard him, they lost 1 arm each. Which is funny, because it's kind of like the body parts that was taken from Haya, he's kind of like taking from them. He's like, you guys have taken from me, I will take from you. And he's just snatching their body parts away, which fits along with the symbolism of, Haya being a demon. For instance, constantly taking, coming onto the land and ruining people's lives. That's kind of what it's meant to be. So, like I said, it's just great. It's a really great episode to show just how far Haya would go, and Tammaro as well. Now, to kind of talk about one last thing before I, wrap up this video, I want to talk about the horse. So, it's very apparent from the final part of the episode with the whole white horse and being revived. It's kind of like the reference, Death rides a pale horse. It's something that actually happened very recently in Game of Thrones, which I'm just surprised. I've seen 2 references in just a short span of time. But Death rides a pale horse. It's a pretty common theme that you would see, especially with white horses and all that. And it's basically symbolized as that Hai is going to get on the horse. He is deaf, and he will deliver death onto people. And that's what he's going to do. And so it's going to be interesting. Hai is going to potentially have a horse that works with him. That's what I'm assuming. I'm assuming that that horse is actually going to be on his side, and Haya will work with it to be able to achieve what he wants. Because the horse obviously has a lot of anger, too, towards Daigo. And we also know that the armor was probably the fallen soldiers and people that have died thanks to Daigo or the land or whatever, and so they're angry too. So they want to take out their anger on Daigo, the very people that did it wrong. So there's a lot of things at stake that's being built up, but I can't wait to see where it's going to go. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below, because for some reason, even if you click the subscribe button, you don't always get notified. And so with that, I love you guys, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.